we just were going through them kind of in order, and then I was talking about a bunch of other stuff, of course, at the same time, which we'll keep doing. Let's start with number 20 on test 1 through 4. You want to do that? I think we did the first 19 in the other class. Yeah. Okay. So there's a bunch of stuff here. It says, which of the following journal entries was created as a result of a deferral? Okay, so let's do this. I want you guys to write down for me cash, a cash transaction, cash now. That's a W. Cash now for revenues and for expenses. You know where this is going, right? And let's say it's rent. You know, I'm the landlord, I have rent revenue. I'm the tenant, I have rent expense. Right, guys? So company to company. All right? Cash. Later, revenue and expense. Got the idea? And cash, guess what? In advance. Okay? It's $1,000 of rent. Okay? Give you each of these. Right? 19. This is, what's that?
What number is what?
This is number 20. Number 21. You would have answered number 17. If you know this, you can answer a whole bunch of questions. Write down the journal entries. So let's say it's revenue, it's rent for the month of April. In one case, you paid it in April, right? April 30th, probably. In another case, you're going to pay it sometime in May. Right, the second one. So cash now would be paid in April, right? Cash later, let's make me paid 5/10, May 10th. Cash in advance, let's say it's paid, I don't know, sometime before April, 3/25, right? March 25th. Got it? Write those. That you can do it. Boom, boom, boom. You know what accruals and deferrals are, you guys. So this is testing. You don't have the revenue expense when you expend it to cash, right? Or receive the cash. You separate cash flows from revenues and expenses. So deferrals and accruals are all about it. It's going to be easy. You know, we had almost as many people attend today as we had take the test the other day. It's just amazing. Imagine taking the final if it was 300 or 400 points. I mean, there's somebody who's going to have 400 points or so in their final. Imagine that. And if you haven't gone to class for half the semester or more. How's that going to work out?
How much is the final margin?
It's 200. So, it's 200 out of 650 points for you guys, huh? Unless you had to miss for an athletic event or something, that's different, right? If you're prepared and all that, there'll be somebody with 300 just like that, maybe, right? Or 250 if you miss 2 quizzes. But, you know, imagine that. These are your competitors. It's like you're playing a basketball game or a softball game or something, and the other team just forfeits. So we're going to have a real low GPA in here, you guys. We're going to have a whole bunch of A's and B's, a smattering of C's, and then D's and F's. And we're going to have a real low GPA. We're a rigorous schooler. Not a rigorous school, they just don't come. Amazing. How much tuition does it cost you guys to be here? Wow. That's amazing. I think they have very wealthy parents or something, you know, and they're just going to inherit a lot of money. I don't know. So, you know what's really sad is when you go out to work too. In most businesses you go to work for, the competition does exactly that. They don't come to work. You get fired. You won't be competing at that level. People you're competing with. By the way, you go to work at Price Waterhouse, everybody comes to work, and everybody works their ass off. Yeah. And a lot gets done. A lot gets done. I right? They have the clients they do, right? Anyway, you got these done? You write down all the entries, guys? It's easy, right? Go through the process. Actually, write them down. Debit, credit, debit, credit, debit, credit. You done it? Are you done? This is a joke. You got them done? 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 Are we ready? Everybody's done? You guys could have said so. Okay, all right. What would you do at April 30th here? Debit what? I said it was rent. Debit what? Earned it. Okay, whatever it was, the amount. Credit? 1,000. What is it? Rent revenue. Ta-da. What would you do if it was an expense? Cash back. Rent expense. Remember, you guys, you didn't used to know this a couple months ago? Now it's a joke, right? I'll learn it, right? Credit what? Okay, what do you want to do with this we cash later, I guess, at April 30th? What happened by April 30th? You earned the rent, right? So debit what? Oh, they didn't pay you, so debit what? Account receivable, probably rent receivable, something like this. Some companies would use account receivable, some would use rent receivable. Whatever they want. Credit what? Earned it. Rent revenue, same as here when I earned it. Okay, then what happens? May 10th, I guess they said. What happens, guys? They get the cash and rent receivable goes away because they don't have it anymore because they paid me, right? These two canceled out. What's left? Debit rent. Whoops. These two cancel out. Not that. So what's left? Debit cash and credit rent revenue, just like that one, right, guys? Good. Good. Those two. Okay. Let's do the other side, expense side. What happened? At the end of April, we used the property, right? Used it up. Used up the rental. What do we do? Debit what? I used it, so what do I have? An expense. Debit rent expense. Things I used up are expenses, right? Credit? Rent payable, probably rent payable. Some companies would call it accounts payable, okay? But typically accounts payable is for inventory, accounts receivables for your sales. Make sense? Okay, so probably rent payable. Okay, then what? What's going to happen in May? You pay it, credit cash, and debit. Rent payable. It's gone. And this time those two canceled, right? We got debit rent expense, credit rent payable. Okay? Are those two deferral of revenue and deferral of expense, or accrual of revenue and accrual of expense? What do you think? I don't defer cash or accrue cash. I defer revenue expense and accrue revenue expense. What's this, an accrual or a deferral? I am recording the revenue before I get paid. What is that? No, it's an accrual. An accrual. I'm not deferring the cash. I'm deferring. I'm sorry. When I do a deferral, I'm not deferring cash, right? I'm deferring the revenue. I get the cash. When I do an accrual, I'm not accruing the cash. I'm accruing the revenue. I recorded revenue. It's an accrued revenue. Oh, and here, I'm recording the expense even though I didn't pay for it yet. It's an accrued expense. Everybody messes that up. When we get to 211, those of you going into 211, it's a number of you, right? When you go on into 211, we're going to talk about it that way. So get comfortable with it, okay? The way we talk about it. Their deferrals and accruals. Is that a deferral or is that an accrual or what are we doing, right? Okay. All right. So those are accruals, both of them. One's revenue, of course, and one's expense. Both of them, okay? Good thing. I don't know if it'll be on your test or something now, but good thing you know. Then what happens? March 25th. We're paying them in advance, right? What journal did you do for that one? Debit cash because you received it, and credit what? Unearned rent revenue. Okay, so there's your deferral, okay? That journal entry right there is the deferral. Even though I got paid, I don't have the revenue yet. Huh? Now I earn the revenue, that's a liability, right? Unearned revenue. Now I satisfy the liability by delivering property to them, let them use the property, right? Okay, so time goes by, I've earned the rent. What do? Because I've earned the rent, I no longer owe them the use of the property, so debit the unearned rent revenue, right? And credit what? Not spent, rent revenue, yeah. Okay. It's so easy, it's hard to say it. Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, anyway, so yeah, those two cancel. Debit, cash, credit, rent revenue, just like the other ones. It's just in different periods, okay? Why do we bother with this, by the way? When I do a balance sheet and an income statement at the end of each month, I want the revenues recorded I earned. I want the expenses recorded I incurred. I don't care when the cash change hands. Right? In this first one, the cash and the rent revenue happen at the same time. Fine. Okay? In the second one, what's the deal? I have a rent receivable instead of the cash. I don't want to record cash till I get it the next period, right? But I do want the revenue recorded. Everybody good? And then this one over here, what's the deal? I want the cash on my balance sheet, but I want to show a liability because I still own the use of the building, right? I haven't earned it yet. I don't have more revenue. I don't have more net income. I don't have more equity, right? I don't until later. That's it. That's simple. When I was talking about this the first time, it was kind of like, whoa, where is he going? Now, does this just make pure common sense for you guys? It's just nothing, right? It's just not a big deal, okay? So you just relax when you do the test and do it, okay? Somebody from the other class said, was that test hard that you did? What do you guys think?
Just long.
I mean, it was long. You could do everything, but it was long. It wasn't enough time. There'll be enough time for fun. But it gave you a real picture of what you need to know. Those three exams did pretty much help. All three of these. You know what you need to know, right? And imagine doing two of these exams, the equivalent in terms of length. Two of these exams, you got 3 hours. You going to be okay? Yeah. And it's not because you have more time. It's because you really know it. If you didn't know it, I could give you forever, right? Right? Think about the second exam you guys did. All the pieces you left out, right? By the end, you weren't doing that anymore, huh? Do that in your careers, too. Don't go in half prepared, right? Go in prepared. It'll really pay off. You can do the work anyway. You can either do the work before your boss wants you to do it, or you can do it after they yell at you for not doing it. What do you want? They won't yell. That's the thing that's done. We gotta have this done. That's yelling, right? It is. Affecting your career. What's the last one? What happened here? Prepaid rent. That's also a deferral, isn't it? It's a deferral of what? Expense. It's a deferral, isn't it? Credit what? Cash. So that was a deferral too, huh? Okay. And then what happens? Oh, this was April 30th, I guess. This is April 30th. Then what happens, Kate? It becomes rent expense when you use it up. When you use up assets, it becomes an expense, doesn't it? And credit what? What you use up? Prepaid rent. I want to do business with you. You're going to pay me twice.
For the
That's it.
prepaid rent, do you have to call it prepaid rent or do you call it prepaid rent expense?
Either one's fine. If you put the word prepaid in front, what is it? It's an asset, not an expense. You put the word unearned in front of revenue, what is it? Liability instead of revenue. You can call it also deferred revenue. That's fine. You see that. Okay. No big deal, huh, guys? By the way, when I buy a building or a piece of equipment, what happens to it as I use it over time? I expense it. It's depreciation expense. It's an asset I used up. When I use up assets, they become expenses, don't they? The prepaid does. In the first one, I used up the cash, right? Over here, I used up the cash and it became an expense. It's okay, right? Everybody good? What's the other way I could have an expense? I could have an expense and accrue a liability, huh? And then later pay it with an asset. Everybody got the idea of this? What about inventory? I buy inventory, debit inventory, credit accounts payable. Then what do? Debit accounts payable and credit cash. But then what do I do with the inventory? I sell it to my customer. What does it become? What does that asset turn into? Well, it turns into revenue. That's the sales price. But what does the asset itself become? The cost of goods sold, which is a expense, paying cost of goods sold. Okay, there was an earlier problem. Let me make up one. So do that with you guys too. Good repetition. People watch both of these. It's great. All right, let's do this. Here's a sale that we had. Sold $10,000 cost of product for $12,000 on account journal entries for that? Do this. Do the journal entries for that. Give me the journal entries, okay? And then also, in trees, two things happen. And then also, tell me what the impact is on the balance sheet and the income statement. See this, guys? All this stuff is deferrals and accruals, but everything's deferrals and accruals and cash. Right? You do it. No matter how I ask a question, right? It wouldn't make any difference how I approach it. Maybe I don't ask for the journal entry, I just ask for the impact on the accounts, right? Maybe I just ask for the journal entry, either way, doesn't matter, ask for both. What's the journal entry for that? Sold 10,000 of product that it cost me 10,000, right? And I sold it obviously for 15. Okay? 12 on account. 3,000 was their down payment. In other words, what? Okay, what do they pay with? Cash. Okay. By the way, you guys, spring is like this a lot with people disappearing. Fall not so bad, not as bad. And people who don't really want to take their class take it in the spring, they wait to take it. And then in the summer, almost nobody drops. Everybody's like you guys, right? Going for it. So, by virtue of the fact that it's in the spring, probably fit your schedule better or whatever. If you guys are serious, obviously. A lot of people aren't serious about spring. And then they'll do it. Waiting's never a good strategy. So what's the journal entries? Debit what? Cash. You guys are really quiet. You got a lot of eyes and all the final papers. Debit what else? Yes. This is easy, isn't it? Told you it's confidence building. Credit what? You can credit inventory. Credit inventory. How much are you going to credit inventory? But that's a separate, whoops, Tim. But that's a separate entry, isn't it? What did you want to credit?
Sales revenue.
Sales revenue, excellent. If you're going to do that, don't call it gain. A lot of people did on a problem like this on this test, right? Sales revenue is how much? And you call it sales or sales revenue. Nobody cares because we're revenue on it. Some companies do, some don't. Okay? It's sales. We know it's revenue. What do you, well, you're going to credit inventory. I agree with that. You gave up the inventory, right? Debit what? Cost. And what kind of an account is cost of goods sold? It's an expense. Okay, everybody have that entry? Those two entries? No. Maybe. But you know it, right?
Do we have to have both? We have to have both the inventory and.
I don't know how you do it otherwise. Because that's an asset I'm reducing, right? And that's an expense I'm increasing. That's an asset I'm increasing, an asset I'm increasing, and a revenue I'm increasing, right? So all of it has to, you can make it one entry if you want, right? But you still have to have all those accounts.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, good. So what does it do to the balance sheet and income statement, you guys? All you got to do is say what? Remember, you're making the statements. You create the statements as you do your journal entries, right? Yes.
What's the difference between that entry right there and having like a gain on sale?
That would be if I was selling a non-operating asset, not if I'm selling inventory. Okay. Inventory is how I generate. I'm selling inventory is how I generate my revenues, and then the cost is an expense, right? So it'd be the non-operating stuff. So if I'm selling land, building equipment, investments, all that stuff, that'd be gains and losses, right? Or refinancing long-term debt would also be a gain or loss. This is normal course of operations. It's going to be revenues and expenses, not gains and losses. Does that do it? Okay. Good. All right. Okay. So what happened to assets? Just do it as a group, you guys. What can you do? This one's an asset, right? This one's an asset, right? This one's an asset. What happened to assets? I increased them by 15, 3 plus 12. And then I decreased it by 10. What happened to assets? Went up by 5. Everybody agree? What happened to liabilities? Anybody see a liability in those journal entries? Nope, nothing happened. So what must have happened to equity? Went up by 5. I know you guys are tired. I know you'd rather be doing something else, except you got to get through these finals, right? Then you get to have some fun for a week or two, right? Whatever, before you start your classes or start your jobs or something. Okay, so anyway, here's the deal, right? Take it down, go after it, stay focused. This is a really good use of your time today. If nothing else but to build your confidence, right? A little bit of practice, thinking about it, thinking through it one more time, right? This is gonna be automatic, isn't it? You're gonna read these problems. I know how to do that. I know how to do that. I know how to do that. And you guys, you do not have this memorized. You know it. It's true, isn't it? You can do this no matter how I ask it. Who cares, right? It doesn't make any difference. You guys have got it. I hope you're that way in all your classes. That'd be fantastic. Okay. Anyway, that never happens for you. Then what else we got? Revenues and expenses. Which one's the revenue? Now, oh, by the way, how come I know equity went up by 5? Because liabilities didn't change and assets went up by 5, right? Revenue's 15, everybody agree with that? Then what? It goes up by 15. Is there an expense? You bet there is. Cost of goods sold, isn't it? Went up by 10, didn't it? What happened to your net income? Of course it went up by 5 because that's how equity went up by 5, huh? You could do these, huh? Nothing to it. And that's all I'm asking over and over and over in this test. It really is. Okay? All right. So let's do some of them. Which of the following journal entries was created as a result of a deferral? What's a deferral? What are the 2 deferrals? That's why I had to do that. What are the 2 deferrals? You can defer revenue. What would it be? Debit cash, credit, unearned revenue, and then what do you do next? Debit unearned revenue and credit revenue. Right, guys? That's what we just did. So either one of those is part of is an entry like that. Is that one there? Yeah, A. I bet A is the answer, because that's this. Okay? What's the other possibility for a deferral? Prepaid. Debit prepaid and credit cash, right? That would be okay too, wouldn't it? So any of these 4 entries, what's the other one going to be when you use up the prepaid? We just did it, didn't we? Debit expense, credit prepaid. Look at that. If you know how to do this, any of those 4 entries could be the answer. Which one's there? That one right there. That's the answer. It's got to be. Why isn't it debit interest expense and credit interest payable? That's an accrual of interest, isn't it? Ah, debit cash, credit revenue. That's a cash transaction. Debit salary expense, credit cash. That's a cash transaction. It's got to be A. Which of the following is the result of an accrual? Okay. What are the accruals, you guys? Debit expense. Whoops, this side, I guess. And credit what? Some sort of a liability. You guys agree? Accrued liability of some kind? Right? There's an accrual of expense. Then what happens? You pay it, don't you? Debit the liability. You know, it was debit rent expense. Credit rent payable. Now it's debit rent payable. Credit cash. Right, guys? You know this, don't you? So it could be any of those. But it could be revenue too. What would that be? Debit what? Accrue revenue for me. Accounts receivable. And sales, maybe? Or rent receivable and rent revenue. Right, guys? And then they pay you. Debit cash. You guys are so mean to me. You do all the time. Okay, anyway, right? That'll change when you're in intermediate if we have too much fun. People will talk a lot. And then by the time they're auditing, they don't say anything anymore. You know? Check out. They're actually doing everything on their own by then. Okay, so what have we got here? Any of those? Do you see one of them? Debit accounts receivable and credit revenue? Ah, that sounds good. How about debit interest expense and credit cash? I think that's a cash transaction. How about debit cash and credit deferred revenue? I think that's a deferral. How about, you could call it deferred revenue instead of unearned revenue. How about debit rent expense and credit prepaid? I think that's a deferral of expense. It's got to be A. Okay. Which of the following transactions results in an increase in both net income and stockholders' equity? You know what? I forgot to give you guys some stuff. Save it for you, and then I do it. Would anybody like one of these exams? To do it again. Yeah, I can do it. I got a few tests, chapters 1 through 4. They're not going to go far enough, but they're. There's one more. It's a lottery. She gets it. I don't know why. Anybody want to quiz 1 and 2? Somebody else? There's one. There's one. Anybody want to quiz 3 and 4? These are kind of handy. I mean, you all have them, of course, but I've got a nice set of blank ones to work it again. Test 5 to 9? Yeah, I think I got a bunch of these. This is when everybody decided to leave us. It's probably because you guys are obnoxious, not me. I don't have any more. You don't want to call anybody that you might work for, sir, right, or ma'am. Call them by their first name. If they don't like that, you don't want to work for them. You want to be one of the bosses. That was hard to believe. What's really fun is I'm meeting these 18-year-old kids coming in, you know, and 17-year-old kids. You can check out that one. Take a good one. Anybody want 5 to 9? Let everybody got one. Got it. I got it. Did everybody take one? Yeah. Got a few more of them. Quiz 8 through 9? No, here's a quiz 5 to 7. Anybody want that? That's from summer. No, that's from spring. You won't know this. Here's some 8 through 9. Might as well use the paper. Yeah, quiz 8 through 9. Anybody else want one? More? Anybody want one? One more? No one? You got two? Okay. And that's it. That's all I got. I quit making so many as time went on. Nobody wants these last 3? 5 things. Test 5 things. Everybody go. Test 5 things. So you don't have to write all this stuff down and write it down, right? You can do all this in your head. I don't care. But be cautious. Okay? You're going to have time. So if you're fuzzy, write it down. Okay? Just, oh, it's got to be that one. It's really disappointing if you knew how to do something you don't get credit for it, right? Don't do that. And when you go to work, you do that too. If you're careful, right? You work fast. If you're careful, you don't double check everything twice or anything like that. But you work fast because we're under control. All right. Anyway, so what do we got? Which of the following transactions results in both net income and stockholders' equity increase in both? What's that going to be? It's got to be more revenue. What are the two things you can have? If you're going to have an increase in net income and an increase in stockholders' equity, what is that? It's got to be credited what? Revenue. Right? And debit something. Right? Could be a liability, could be an asset. Right, guys? What else? Actually, could even be equity, believe it or not. Okay. What else could it be? Could be an expense going down. True. And debit something else. Are you guys with me on that? It's true, isn't it? So, which of the following transactions? Paying cash to acquire a 6-month insurance policy. Isn't that debit, prepaid, and credit cash? Two assets. Doesn't have anything to do with equity or income. Collecting cash from a customer for service to be provided in the future. What's that? Debit cash credit under your revenue, isn't it? See, it's all the same question over and over, isn't it? So does that have any, increasing an asset, increasing a liability, what does it do to equity? Nothing, right?
That's a accrual, right? That was an accrual.
Collecting cash from a customer for services, that's a deferral. Debit cash, credit, unearned revenue. Deferral, okay, yeah. Paying cash to acquire the 6-month insurance policy, that's a deferral, right? Debit, prepaid, credit, cash. Okay? Now we think about it. The accrual of interest expense at year end. How about that one? Debit interest expense? Oh, I hit expense. Oh, but it's a debit. What would that do to equity? Go down. What would that do to income? Go down. That would reduce. And that's an accrual, right? It's debit interest expense and credit interest payable. It's going the wrong direction. How about adjustment of unearned revenue for revenue earned during the period? What's that? Debit unearned revenue and credit revenue, right? Yeah, that's the answer. It's D. Did you get that one right? It looks hard, doesn't it? And it's easy. We just let you think through it. Okay? All these questions are easy if you know how to do it, of course. Okay. What is the effect on financial statements when a company fails to record depreciation expense at year end? What they did not do, now, a thing to do is something like this. When it says, what's wrong with the statements if you didn't do it? Write down the journal entry to do it, and then think about what's missing, okay? So still write the entry down. What would be the entry for depreciation expense? Debit. Depreciation expense, you guys agree with that? Credit what? I'm not going to say anything, I know. You are thinking, right? Credit accumulated depreciation? Tell me what that does. What happened, guys? This would give me more expense, so if I fail to do that, what's wrong with it? Understated? Would you agree? It would give me less net income, that expense item, right? Okay? Which means it's overstated, which is going to do what to equity, of course? When you close too low of income to it, or too much income, right? So that would make it less, so it's overstated too, right? And then the credit is the accumulated depreciation. What kind of account is that? Contra asset, but if you credit an asset account, either a regular asset or a contra asset, what happens? You'd reduce it, so if you fail to reduce it, it's overstated, and we are done. What's the effect on revenues and liabilities? Nothing, because it's not in the journal entry, right? So what's the effect? Net income is overstated and stockholders' equity is understated. That's impossible, right? You got to both go the same direction. Expenses are understated and stockholders' equity is understated. Nope, they're overstated, right? You know, expenses are understated and liabilities are overstated. Nope, that ain't anything to do with liabilities. Net income is overstated and assets are overstated, of course, right? So the answer is D. What is the effect on the financial statement when you fail to do prepaid insurance? Exactly the same type of question. So you fail to record prepaids, right? You're failing to record this what? Deferral of expense, right? Prepaid. Oh no, it's expired. So it's using up of a deferred expense, right? Deferral. So when you debit insurance expense, was insurance, wasn't it? And you credit what? Prepaid insurance, because you're using it up. I am increasing an expense and I'm reducing an asset. That's it. You don't have to write this down, it's obvious what it is, but just to make sure we're all there. Everybody's at a different point. By the way, if there's stuff in this first test you don't know how to do, make sure you do before you take the final. That's the clue, right? That's what you do. Make sure it's all solid. I go through the whole thing. I go through all the quizzes. Work them again. I work all the tests again. I work all the practice quizzes and tests again. It's going to be fast. They're going to be flying, right? So you get something you don't know how to do, and then what are you going to do? Learn it. And you'll be in good shape, right? You guys have been studying all along. It's not going to be too bad to study for this final. And then I'd go through the book, and if everything's highlighted, I'd make sure I know what it means. Case, keys, frozen, multiple choice questions. I know what all those terms are. And knowing all the terms, too, will help you with the journal entries, right? You guys do you any longer worry about what to name an account? Did you memorize the names of all the accounts? No. You know what you're doing. You know that rent and expense together means rent expense. You know that prepaid rent or prepaid rent expense means an asset. And you know how to name these things, don't you? You know what inventory is. You know what equipment is. You know what depreciation is, right? You guys are good. Just relax about it, okay? So don't start memorizing again. Don't go to, I guess that's silly at this point to tell you that. Anyway, They failed to do this, did they? If they failed to do that, what's wrong? That would increase expenses, so it must be understated, is that right? That would reduce net income, so it must be overstated, which means equity should be lower, so it must be overstated. And then assets should be lower, right? Okay, all right, credit and asset. So it must be overstated, and that's what you're looking for. No effect, no effect. So which one's that? It's D. You mean number 23 and number 24 were exactly the same question? Yes. That's the same thing twice. Wow. Sure. Using up an asset, it becomes an expense in both cases. Good. When you were doing test 1 through 4, did you know those were the same question?
I didn't know, but it's
Still got it right. Yeah. Okay. They'll do that on the CPA exam too. They'll ask you the same thing. What didn't you just ask me? Anyway, on 25, I guess. Failure to make an adjusting entry to recognize rent receivable because which the following. Well, what's that entry? Debit, rent receivable, and credit. Must have done what? Earned it. Rent revenue. Recognizing the rent receivable and recognizing the rent revenue. There we go.
not an accrual, because the revenue is first.
Yes. Well, it's an accrual because I am accruing the revenue before I get the cash. Cash is later. So we don't accrue cash, we accrue revenue and expense. Okay. Defer is not deferring cash, deferring revenue. Okay. So a failure to make this entry would do what? Let's see, rent receivable should be higher, so it would be understated, right guys? Rent revenue should be higher, so it's understated. Whoops. Revenue, which causes net income, right? They're all understated, right? And that causes equity. There's nothing to it. No liability there, no expense there. We're done. Okay, so what do you got? Which one was that? A, understatement of assets, net income. Right? Let's do 26. Which of the following accounts would be most likely to require an adjusting entry in the future? That's cool, isn't it? To require, not to require. Well, let's see. If you had unearned subscriptions revenue, what would you do? Debit cash and credit unearned subscriptions revenue. Selling magazines, right? Subscriptions. What do you think? As I deliver them, I am earning the revenue. I'd make an adjusting journal at the end of the period, right? To reflect how much I earned, and I would debit unearned subscription revenue and credit subscription revenue. That's an adjusting entry, isn't it? Yeah, sure. Okay. Let's see. Office supplies. I buy office supplies. I debit office supplies inventory, right? Credit cash. Or credit accounts payable, maybe, and later pay with cash. Then what? I use it. At the end of the period, I count how much I have. I know what's in the account. I know how much I have. What do? I make an adjusting journal entry to do what? Debit what? For the ones I used. Office supplies expense. Credit what? For the ones I used. I don't have any anymore. Office supplies inventory. Isn't that right? You guys are looking puzzled. Don't look puzzled. I bought office supplies. It'd be debit office supplies inventory. Credit accounts payable probably, right? Business to business is typically that. Then when I pay for it later, debit accounts payable, right guys? Credit cash. You guys know this. Okay? Then at the end of the period, do I need an adjusting journal entry? Sure, I go count how much I have, compare it to what's on the general ledger in office supplies, and I credit office supplies inventory, right? For the ones I used up, right? And debit what? Office supplies expense. Is that an adjusting journal entry? Of course it is. Okay? So that would. How about utilities payable? No. I'm going to debit utility expense and credit utilities payable. And then when it's due, what am I going to do? Pay it. Debit what? Utilities payable. Credit what? Cash. That's not an adjusting journal entry. That's a cash disbursement. Right? Got it? That was hard at the time, kind of, wasn't it? Distinguishing those things. Hopefully not now. Prepaid rent? It's just like the office supplies. I pay the rent in advance. I debit prepaid rent, and I credit what? Cash. Then at the end of the period, I figure out how much I've used up, don't I? And how much I've left. I reduced the prepaid from where it is to where it should be at the end of the period with a credit done. And I debit what? For what I used up. The expense account. That up, right? So that was an adjusting entry, isn't it? So the only answer you can do there is C. Everybody got it? This is easy. And then we get into the number crunching ones. We'll do that in the review, okay? For those who are here and the rest of you are welcome to watch it, of course. We'll get it out there.